Hello, Harvest. As we approach the end of the year and Christmas is on the horizon, I like to think about what books I've read over the past year. And last year I had the chance to share with you some of my top books from the year and hopes to maybe inspire your Christmas present purchases. And I thought I would do that again this year. So I want to share 5 books that I really enjoyed from the past year. The first book is actually one that I read earliest in the year. It's called Deep Discipleship by J.T. English. And it's a book that looks at how we as a church should think about training disciples in the church through classes and small groups and sort of the sequencing of how we want to think of that. And so really beneficial book, and a book that I'll come back to. This would be great for anyone who's leading a ministry team area, really thought-provoking. I'm actually going to sneak 2 books in for the price of one here. The first one is Wisdom in Leadership by Craig Hamilton. I've been reading this slowly over the last 2 years with some different people in church, and it's one of the most comprehensive books on leadership that I've read, covering everything from the leader's character to the nuts and bolts of how do you run a meeting and how do you work on teams. And so short chapters written really in an engaging fashion, funny, and so would be beneficial to anyone who's in a leadership position inside the church or outside the church. And then he wrote a follow-up with a creative title, Wisdom in Leadership Development. And this is on leadership pipelines and how do we then take the leaders that we're developing and delegate responsibility within a church or another organization. So also really thought-provoking. On that train of thought, for the history lover out there, Leadership in Turbulent Times by Doris Kearns Goodwin. She's a presidential biographer who I've really enjoyed reading her writings. This book takes 4 of the presidents that she's written on, Abraham Lincoln, FDR, Theodore Roosevelt, and Lyndon Johnson, and talks about how they were formed for leadership, how they developed as leaders, and then how in particular crises their leadership was demonstrated. And the last section is really helpful with leadership maxims taken right from the lives of these 4 presidents. All right. Read Tim Keller's book on prayer this year, and just found it to be really beneficial in my own devotions and thinking on prayer. The first 2 chapters are a little slow, as Keller talks about various philosophers, as he's wont to do, but I thought the payoff for this book was the middle section where he talks on biblical meditation and how that can shape our prayer lives, and he draws on the wisdom of guys like John Owen, and just really beneficial. Last one is going to be maybe a surprising pick. It's not exactly a fun read, but it was sort of my surprise book of the year. It's called Finding Grace in the Face of Dementia, and it's written by a Christian physician. And he looks at the topic of dementia, which is a widespread issue that many of us will face either in giving care or receiving care, thinks about it theologically, and then also talks about some of the practical issues that caregivers and care receivers will face because of dementia. And so I think this was helpful for me in understanding a very widespread pastoral issue, but also in growing in empathy for those who are going through this challenge. So these are some of the books that I've read this year, and I'd love to hear what you read this year and what was maybe beneficial or enjoyable to you. So feel free to send me a note. I always love to hear that. But I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and happy reading.